Welcome back to the Power Playbook.
Yeah.
You know, where we try to untangle that whole web of power dynamics, the kind that you find everywhere, in business, relationships, pretty much everywhere.
Everywhere.
Exactly. It's all about understanding the rules of the game so you can play it well. Let's just say strategically.
Strategically.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, sometimes you got to know how to bend the rules a little without actually breaking them, you know?
Right, exactly. And today, we're diving deep into Law 1 from Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power. It's basically like a master class in power dynamics.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, and Law 1 is a really good one. It's called Never Outshine the Master. Sounds a little ominous, I know.
Yeah.
But trust me, this isn't about being a pushover. It's about understanding how to navigate those tricky relationships with people who are in positions of authority.
It's like a strategy guide for managing upwards.
I love that. Okay, so Robert Greene lays out this law super clearly in his book. In fact, I'm going to read the judgment verbatim because it's just that good. Always make those above you feel comfortably superior. In your desire to please and impress them, do not go too far in displaying your talent, or you might accomplish the opposite, inspire fear and insecurity. Make your masters appear more brilliant than they are, and you will attain the heights of power. Chills, right?
It's powerful stuff, and it really gets to the heart of why understanding power dynamics is so important. People in positions of authority, well, they tend to be a little sensitive about their power.
Sensitive? You mean like when my boss starts sweating profusely whenever I suggest a new idea?
Maybe. But seriously, think about it. Power often comes with a healthy dose of ego and insecurity.
Oh, yeah?
So if you're constantly showing them up, making them feel inadequate, what do you think's going to happen?
Well, usually they accidentally spill coffee all over my presentation notes 2 minutes before a big meeting. Happens every time.
Yeah, maybe. Or they could just feel threatened, envious, even resentful. And trust me, you don't want those vibes headed your way.
Yeah, no, thank you. Hard pass. So let's dive into a historical example of what happens when someone really misses the mark on this law. Let's talk about Nicolas Fouquet.
Oh, Fouquet, a classic example of how not to impress your boss, especially when your boss is the king.
Right. Okay, so we're talking 17th century France here. Nicolas Fouquet was the finance minister to King Louis XIV, Sun King himself. And this guy decides to throw a party.
Not just any party, though. Imagine a brand new chateau, gardens designed by the most famous landscape architect of the time, a play by Molière, the OG playwright. Specially composed music, fireworks that probably lit up half a fire.
A whole chateau. Molière, this guy was basically screaming, "Look at me, I'm richer and more fabulous than you."
Pretty much. He wanted to showcase his wealth, his taste, his connections, basically outshine the king in every way possible.
So what happened? Did the king show up in peasant clothes just to make a point?
Well, the king did show up, looking as regal as ever. But impressed? Not so much. In fact, Fouquet's over-the-top extravaganza completely backfired.
What? How do you screw up impressing someone with a party like that? I mean, Molière and fireworks, that's the ultimate party combo.
It's because, my friend, Fouquet committed the cardinal sin of outshining the master. Instead of admiration, his party triggered insecurity, envy, and probably a good dose of royal paranoia in Louis XIV.
Ah, I see. It's all about optics. You can have all the wealth and talent in the world, but if you make the person in power feel threatened, you're playing a dangerous game.
Exactly. And in Fouquet's case, that game had some pretty dire consequences.
Okay, do tell. What happened after the party? Don't leave us hanging.
Well, let's just say the party favors didn't exactly include a get-out-of-jail-free card.
Yes.
Shortly after that epic shindig, Fouquet was arrested, slapped with some pretty serious embezzlement charges, and guess what? Imprisoned for life. Talk about a buzzkill.
Wow. Talk about a party foul. I guess you could say his ambition really landed him in the dungeon. It's a pretty stark reminder of what can happen when you fail to grasp the whole never outshine the master concept.
Absolutely. Perception is everything in the realm of power. You can be the most talented, brilliant person in the room, but if you threaten the person who's holding the reins, well, you might find yourself out in the cold.
Okay, so Fouquet's our cautionary tale. Don't throw a party that makes the king feel like a pauper. Got it. But what about the flip side? What about when someone actually nails this law? Plays the game right. I'm ready for some strategic inspiration.
Let's talk about Galileo.
Yes.
That Galileo, the astronomy genius.
Galileo. Really? What does staring at the stars have to do with power dynamics?
More than you might think. Galileo was brilliant, no doubt, but he also understood the importance of patronage. He needed the support of powerful people to fund his research, to protect him from, well, ending up like Fouquet.
Ah, I see. So he was walking this tightrope, needing to impress those in power without making them feel like he was gunning for their spot.
Yeah. Exactly. And he handled it masterfully. One of Galileo's most significant discoveries was the four largest moons of Jupiter. You know what he did?
Okay, let me guess. He named them after the four most delicious cheeses in Italy. Because honestly, that's what I would have done.
Tempting. But no. He named them after the four Medici brothers. The Medici family, you know. The ones who basically ruled Florence with an iron fist. And a fabulous art collection.
Wait, seriously. He named celestial bodies after his patrons. That's next-level strategic thinking right there.
It was brilliant, and it perfectly illustrates Law 1 in action. Galileo didn't downplay his discovery, he showcased it. But he did it in a way that elevated the Medicis, aligning his brilliance with their power.
So instead of saying, look what I found, he's basically saying, look how amazing the Medicis are. They even have moons named after them.
Exactly. It's like saying, hey, your family is so important, they're practically celestial. Genius, right? And it worked. The Medicis were flattered, their prestige got a boost, and Galileo, he secured their continued support. Genius move.
Okay, this is blowing my mind. So it's not about dimming your light. It's about reflecting it in a way that makes the right people shine.
Precisely. You can be talented, successful, all of that. But always remember to connect your wins to the goals and desires of those in power. Make them look good, make them feel good, and ultimately make them need you. That's the sweet spot.
This is like power dynamics judo, using your opponent's weight against them. Okay, so we've got the historical deep dive, the do's and don'ts. But let's get practical, shall we? I know our listeners are out there thinking, okay, great stories, but how do I actually use this law in my everyday life?
Excellent point. It's all about application.
Exactly. Give us the tactics. How do we put never outshine the master into action without, ending up in a 17th century French prison?
First things first, let's be clear. This is not about manipulation or being fake. It's about understanding human nature and using that knowledge to navigate the complexities of power. Think of it as emotional intelligence with a strategic twist.
Right, so no evil villain cackle required. More like subtle power ninja moves.
Exactly. So here's a key technique. Strategic flattery. And I emphasize the word strategic.
Okay, so not just randomly telling my boss they look amazing in that neon green suit they insist on wearing every Monday, even though we all know it clashes horribly with their skin tone.
Probably not. Strategic flattery is about finding genuine things to admire about your superiors. And, maybe focusing on areas where they might be a little insecure. Everyone's got their weak spots, right?
Oh, so like if my boss is always super stressed about public speaking, even though they're actually pretty good at it, I should lay on the compliments thick.
Exactly. You're boosting their confidence in an area where they might be doubting themselves. It's subtle but effective. And who knows, maybe they'll be so grateful they'll finally give you that raise you've been hinting at.
Worth a shot. Okay, what else? More power ninja moves, please.
Here's a big one. Making your master look good, even if, and sometimes especially if, you're the one doing most of the work.
Ah, yes, the classic let the boss take credit for your ideas scenario. I've definitely been there.
It happens, but again, it's about strategy. You're not erasing your contributions. You're highlighting how your work supports their vision and leadership. It's about making them look like a rock star. And you, well, you're the brilliant but humble mastermind behind the curtain.
So I'm like the ghostwriter of their success. I love it.
Exactly. And remember, you're playing the long game here. By making your superior look good, you're building trust, loyalty, and ultimately increasing your own influence.
Okay, this is all making sense. But I have to ask, are there ever times when it's okay to, break this law, shine a little brighter, so to speak?
That's a great question. It brings us to the concept of the reversal, which Robert Greene also talks about in the 48 Laws of Power.
Ooh, the reversal. Sounds dramatic, like a power play plot twist.
It can be. The reversal is all about recognizing that every rule has its exceptions. Sometimes strategically breaking a law can be more advantageous than blindly following it.
So when it comes to never outshine the master, when would it actually make sense to well outshine?
It's definitely not about going rogue and trying to openly usurp your superior. That's a recipe for disaster, like the Fouquet kind. But there are times when the power dynamics shift. Maybe your superior is weak, incompetent, on their way out.
Ooh, like when the boss is about to retire and everyone's eyeing that corner office.
Exactly. In those situations, strategically showcasing your abilities might be necessary to position yourself for that next step. But again, this requires careful observation, impeccable timing, and a deep understanding of the power landscape.
So it's like playing 4D chess with power moves. You've got to be a few steps ahead.
Right. It's about adaptability and observation. And maybe a little bit of intuition. Not everyone can pull it off.
Okay, I'm officially intrigued. But before we get too lost in this power play labyrinth, let's recap what we've learned about Law 1. Never outshine the master.
Let's do it. It's a good one to have in your arsenal.
So never outshine the master. It's about understanding those power dynamics
Yeah.
and navigating them. Sometimes they can be a little tricky, right? But it's not about being a pushover
Mm.
or like silencing your own brilliance. It's more about strategy.
Strategy.
Yeah, subtlety. And knowing when to play the game.
Hmm.
And maybe when to bend the rules. Just a little.
Right.
We talked about Court Nicolas Fouquet, who threw that crazy over-the-top party
Yeah.
and ended up, well, in a 17th century French prison. So definitely a lesson in keeping your celebrations a little more low-key, especially when you're dealing with royalty.
Especially with royalty.
Yeah.
And then there's Galileo, the stargazing genius,
Yeah.
who played the game so well by dedicating his discoveries to the powerful Medici family, a classic example of how to align your success with the interests of those in power.
Right. And of course, we learned some seriously useful tactics,
Mhm.
like strategic flattery, making your master look good.
Yeah.
And even the art of the well-placed,
Uh,
self-deprecating joke. We even explored the reversal, those like rare moments when breaking the law might actually be the smartest move.
Yeah. It's all about being adaptable, observant, and always reading the room, or in this case, like the entire power chessboard.
This has been so interesting. Seriously, my Power Playbook is like overflowing with new strategies.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for breaking this all down for us.
My pleasure.
And speaking of fascinating, I want to leave our listeners with a little something to ponder. Okay. So think about your own life, your work, your relationships. Where are you seeing these power dynamics at play? And how can you apply, or maybe strategically break, Law 1? To achieve your goals, it's all about working smarter, not harder,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And while you're pondering that, we want to say a huge GE thank you for tuning in to the Power Playbook. We're so incredibly grateful for your support, and we just love that you're out there, leveling up your power game with us.
It's a pleasure to share these insights with such an amazing audience.
You guys are the absolute best. And hey, if you're loving the Power Playbook, do us a solid and hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment telling us what you think, and of course, share this with your friends. Let's spread that power wisdom far and wide.
We appreciate each and every one of you.
All right, I'm already excited for our next deep dive. We're going to be tackling another one of Robert Greene's juicy laws from the 48 Laws of Power. And let's just say this one involves a little bit of mystery, a dash of deception, and a whole lot of strategy. Sound intriguing? Make sure you tune in next time to find out more. Until then, stay powerful, my friends.